I don't really keep it a secret that I'm not a big fan of the very safe G Pro shape, but it is possibly the most popular FPS mouse in recent years. It dominates the pro Valorant scene, and sponsorships aside, it pulls down an impressive 5th place in Amazon's best-selling gaming mice. But in a space where we've seen some pretty decent innovation, it's been almost 3 years with no meaningful refresh to this mouse. So I guess the video you're about to watch could be summed up by saying, if the Superlight is already your mouse of choice, there's a pretty good argument to own this version. If you prefer another mouse, there's not a lot here that's going to change your mind. It honestly feels a little odd that it's even called a Superlight 2. Somebody else must have thought that too, because even the mouse itself doesn't say Superlight 2. Matter of fact, it's pretty difficult to tell the new version from the old version physically at a glance. The only real exterior clue is the long requested move to USB-C charging. Almost every change here happens under the hood. There's no revisions to the shape, the power switch, the onboard dongle storage, the included extra puck with the glide, the included grips, or the baffling continued support of the power play mat. Even though the glides themselves are the same material, that additive-free PTFE, the rear glide has been changed just enough to piss off people that have a big stock of aftermarket skates for the Superlight. The scroll wheel is the same. The side buttons, both in position and feel, are the same. The side play on M1 and M2 is the same. So what's not the same? The weight. Technically, it's down 3 grams according to Logitech, it's down 2 grams according to my scale. Mine weighs in at 58 grams, so those of you hoping for like a hyperlight version of this mouse, this is not it. Logitech's stance is that the pros prefer a mouse with a weight of around 60 grams. Now, whether or not you take that at face value depends on how skeptical of a person you are, but I feel like we're starting to see the mainstream brands move away from chasing lighter and lighter weights. Luckily, for those of us that are fans of really light mice, we still have brands like Pulsar and Final Mouse fighting that good fight. We also have greatly increased battery life here. It's now being rated at 95 hours of continuous motion. That's up from 70 hours on the previous version, and that makes it really competitive with the other flagship mice in the space. We've got new clicks here too, because we also have new optical mechanical hybrid switches that Logitech is calling lightforce. This isn't new technology. We've been seeing this in Razer for some time now. But being late to that party really helps them feel more refined. It's really only the sound that gives away that these are optomechanical switches. It's a little bit deeper than your traditional micro switch. That's saying a lot, because you can usually feel when a mouse is using these. The only difference to feel here is that these are heavier and more tactile. There's no crunch at all on my copy. It's going to be a preference thing. If you like a lighter switch that you can spam easier, you may not like these. I like them. I think they feel really good. This is an exclusive design to Logitech G, but they don't make any claims that these are any faster than any of their competitors' optomechanical switches. We will talk about objective latency here in just a sec, but it's important to note that this model is not going to replace anything in Logitech's lineup. The OG Superlight is not going away, in the same way that they continue to sell the original G Pro wireless model from 2018. These launch in black, white, and pink, and the price is $159.99, same price as the first Superlight. We also get a new sensor. This is the Hero 2. Now, stats-wise, this is objectively better than the OG Hero, but most of these stats aren't going to be meaningful to anybody who's not a mouse engineer. It does run at 2000 Hertz though. That's not exactly earth-shattering stuff, with many brands adopting 4K, but most of those brands are still working out the kinks of their 4K, and it can be pretty taxing on your system if you don't have a really banger CPU. This is one of the very few areas where I would blindly trust Logitech. I have to believe there's a reason they went with 2K over 4K, and I also have to believe that their firmware is absolutely dialed in for this thing. From a subjective standpoint, the sensor feels really crispy, really accurate, really stable in game. The whole mouse feels really good to play on for me, and there's also some stuff under the hood of the new G Hub that will allow you to dial that in further. You can adjust DPI not just independently on the X and Y axis, but in really small increments too. Logitech said in the brief that it's possible to dial this into like increments of 1 or 2 DPI. In my experience with the reviewer copy version of G Hub, it rounds off to the nearest 5 DPI. You do get LOD or lift-off distance adjustment here. You can actually pick a different setting for each one of your profiles. You get low, medium, and high. They didn't give any indication as to what this corresponds to in terms of millimeters or how many CDs stack up or whatever. And there's a calibrated DPI mode as well that's pretty interesting. You cannot calibrate this to a certain surface like you can on some competitors' mice, but you can calibrate it against another mouse that you own to account for any DPI variance, and this mode does seem to correct to within 1 DPI. That means you can pick up and play with this mouse, and it should feel very similar sensor-wise to the mouse you were maining before. So the setup I currently play on is an i9 13900K with a 4080 Founders. The monitor is a PG27AQN with ULMB2, I've had a lot of questions about this versus the AQDM OLED. And here's the deal, I like the OLED better for anything that's not competitive. It looks way better. It looks better for competitive too, but I now have months worth of data that shows that I play consistently better on the AQN. There's so much data now that it nullifies anything about like whether I was rested or dehydrated or caffeinated or whatever. Probably a combination of higher frame rate, reduced motion blur, and lower input latency. When I'm measuring peripheral latency, I measure end-to-end latency. That's the amount of time it takes from when you click your mouse for that signal to travel all the way through and then report something back on the screen. I choose to use this method for a couple reasons. The first is that testing exclusively click latency requires you to open the mouse, usually damaging mouse skates for new mice that don't have replacement skates in market yet. The other reason is that there may be a part of that signal chain that's faster, like the click latency, but if the end-to-end experience is roughly the same, you're probably not going to feel that in any meaningful way in day-to-day use. So here's what that looks like on my system versus some of the other popular mice as of late. My system tends to average about a 10 millisecond end-to-end, so the Superlight 2 falls right in there. But the Superlight 2 at 2K only beats the OG Superlight at 1K by 0.5 milliseconds. And these are average of 5 runs, 200 clicks per run. The Superlight 2 at 1K is only beating the OG Superlight by 0.3 milliseconds. So yeah, it's faster, but not shockingly so. Maybe not even meaningfully so. And remember too, this is only click latency. If you want some more granular data or some stuff about the sensor, I'm sure House or Optimum will have you sorted out. I am working on some new testing stuff, but we're not quite there yet. So yeah, it's a boring refresh. Doesn't mean it's bad. It was a top tier mouse. It still is a top tier mouse. If you're not a fan of the shape, there's not anything here that's really going to sway you, but I can confirm it feels really good in game. I don't have any issue recommending it. If you're curious, I normally main the MZ1 wireless on a Saturn Pro pad. It looks like I'll be moving to the Pulsar X2H because I'm really liking the shape and the weight of that mouse. They also dropped a new wireless TKL keyboard. So far, my favorite part of that is the carrying case. The rest of it, the looks, the sound, the feel, looks like it should have come out 3 to 4 years ago. It's instantly forgettable. You can use a single Lightspeed dongle to run both devices, but it's going to limit both to 1000 Hertz. That means no 2K on your mouse if you're going to DP your dongle with 2 devices. If you got some value out of today's video, please drop me a like or consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. If you need specific gear recommendations or you just want to join a cool community, you can check out the private Discord right here. That's it for today, and I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.